more breaking news. We actually broke it the other day about the shop, but Jack, you had some observations?
No, but Axios came out with a list last night, everything from Reddit to some things we've probably never even heard of. But one of the things that we were talking about is the economics of it. Shopify is an online shopping destination, and they have literally apparently taken down all Trump merchandise, and this is harming individual people around the country.
This is what I was saying. So when they banned Trump's Shopify site 2 nights ago, I was saying this is horrible because there are whole businesses of small business owners who exist just purely to sell patriotic merchandise, to sell Trump merchandise, graphic, Trump T-shirts. So all of a sudden, if those people aren't allowed to do business, this has like a massive ripple effect.
This is psychological information and economic warfare. There's no doubt about it. This is a firewall. This is just like the CCP. This is a firewall. I want to now turn to the gentleman. By the way, our man of the year. And Rudy, you missed it yesterday on our at the end of our show, which I think had 500,000 views yesterday when you were on. You started the show, and then later at the end we actually had a ceremony where the National Pulse cover, the photo we took of you here, that's been the National Pulse cover for Man of the Year, became ours also for the Man of the Year that we hang here in the War Room. I just also want to thank you, Rudy. When I'm on your show or your podcast, your ratings go up and, Rudy gets to the next level. When you're on ours, our ratings go up and we go to the next level. Of course, now we're banned for life. So thanks, Rudy. Thank you, boy. Thanks, brother.
I don't even say a ban.
No, but here, look, no, but here's the thing. And Washington Examiner's got a good story. We're going to get it up on the site so everybody can see it because Rudy questioned what drove the protest to be more than a protest, and he put part of the blame on the Democrats, and of course they took it. And they said also he brought up stuff about the false and fake steal the election, which, by the way, is, as we said, is in the Senate of Pennsylvania, in the Senate Judiciary Committee in Georgia, and in the Judiciary Committee of the Senate of the great state of Arizona. So we're just reporting facts of where things stand. But, Rudy, let's get caught up currently. We don't need to – and listen, hey, the revenue share over there was not great, so we're going to be happy, and we'll still ubiquitous. This show is driven by content because we have people like you. I want to go to the digital night of the Long Knives last night, an organized effort, coordinated effort. YouTube took us down permanently. They said Brandon Strzok and other MAGA movement Facebook pages were taken down. Individuals were taken down. There's a huge purge in Twitter, and of course, the coup de grace was the President of the United States' private Twitter account, 88 million people, and all the tweets he put up on the official POTUS account. So walk me through this ban. How big a deal is it? How big a legal problem do we have here? And what is the President of the United States to do to be able to speak to the American people?
This is a very, very big issue. Maybe not realized because of the censorship of this country. 3/4 of the media doesn't cover it. I mean, this is like Nixon's purge. Worse, really, because it has a much broader effect. That affected 5 people. I mean, this affects. I mean, the president has 85 million followers, I believe, right? 85 million people, 88 million followers. So they are taking away the right of 88 million people to hear what they want to hear as American citizens. Where do they get that right? They don't get that right. And now, whether we talk about it as a legal right or as an American value, if you do that, you're not an American. You have no understanding. Mr. Dorsey has no understanding of what it means to be an American, to take away from 88 million people what they want to hear because it disagrees with what he wants them to hear. That is the action of a pure fascist. And this is a very bad guy to do that. I mean, these are tendencies that happen in totalitarian states. And when you called it the night of the Long Knives last night, I thought that was an appropriate description. I mean, this is the biggest attack on American free speech that I can think of in the history of our country. This has never happened before. There have never been this many Americans that agreed that you should cut off free speech because Americans value free speech. And then to go after the President of the United States and to stop him from communicating with his constituents, with his citizens, it approaches a national security problem without any doubt. His ability now to communicate, if God forbid Iran does what people are afraid they might do, some strange or terrorist action to make up for Soleimani's death, his communication will be significantly limited. This is a very, very serious act, both as regards the president and then as regards the 85 million people who want to listen to him. Where did they come
Rudy,
up to 85 million?
Yeah.
You can't.
Well,
I can't listen to what
I'm gonna put this. Yeah, I'm gonna put this back to you. We got about We got about 2 minutes in this segment. I would like to hold you over for part of the next, and here's what I want to put to you.
As long as you want.
These are inextricably linked, and what I mean by that is that over the weekend, Nancy Pelosi's House is working on and drafting up an articles of impeachment. We know there'll be one, and that will accuse the President of the United States of breaking his oath of office by inciting violence and a violent insurrection against the United States government on January 6th. Also, I think what Jack Dorsey and these guys are saying and everything they're putting out is that they believe, or their theory is, or theory of the case is that his Twitter page, and particularly what he's put out the last couple of days to his followers, has the potential to incite violence. You got about a minute in this segment. We got to go in a minute. Those two things are linked, and I'm not saying there's collusion between those, but we'll find that out later with an investigation. But how does that theory of the case stand up? Did the president, in your mind, incite violent insurrection?
Both of them can be proven false. What happened at the Capitol, horrible though it is, was not an insurrection. I mean, it was half of what happened in most of the cities this summer. I mean, half, a third, a tenth of what happened in the cities this summer, including people dying. So it was not an insurrection. Number two, the president's speech ended with "go peacefully and patriotically." I'm sorry, you don't incite to insurrection when you end the speech with "go peacefully and patriotically." I was at the rally. I spoke at the rally. No one has even got excited in the sense of, you and I have seen rallies where people get very, very emotional, put her in jail, or they'll get emotional against Trump. No real emotion here. The emotion was of people who feel that they were cheated out of votes. And they were basic MAGA people. You and I know them. I can go through that. I go through that.
Rudy, hang on for 1 second. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani, on the second hour of a Saturday War Room Pandemic. We'll return in just a moment. When somebody talked to us about the podcast and how strong the podcast is, remember, podcasts is a very small part of our overall distribution. And we actually do the show for kind of more TV or live streaming. Radio and podcasts are very important. I love radio on the John Fredericks Radio Network. But it's always been really kind of television or visually driven. One of the things I want to say is that great content will find its audience. That's kind of McLuhan-esque theory. Great content will find its audience. And here, what we ask the audience, if you like it, just become a force multiplier and get it out. So nobody can shut down great content. If you provide great content and there's a demand for it, that content will always find its source. Also, the other theory of modern cable, all the finance are looked at, hundreds and hundreds of financings of cable operations, bank lending, high yield, all that. All success. I'm a riff on Tolstoy. All successful cable channels are the same, and each failure is failure in its own right, differently. How's it the same? Every cable channel that makes it starts or eventually hits upon a great show, a show that works. It was O'Reilly really for Fox. Roger Ailes had a couple of failures. Rudy Giuliani was a close friend of his and his lawyer. Roger Ailes had a couple of failures at MSNBC and other places. He tried this for years and couldn't. He started Fox. It started, and he had O'Reilly, and then he had Hannity. It was Hannity and Combs at the time. He had Riley and Hannity and Combs. Those two shows in the evening drove Fox for many years. And you can see with Rush Limbaugh's show that came out of nowhere, all that great content will find its audience. Our responsibility every day is to put up great content, and that's our responsibility. The audience, we would appreciate it if you took on, because we're all partners here, and if you like the content and thinks it means something, we particularly want it shared with Democrats or progressives or people that don't agree with you. because what we have found overwhelmingly, the intelligence of the show, the ideas we put forth, the way we force the audience to grapple with these ideas, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's geopolitics, now whether it's the economic theory in back of oligarchs, right? What is it? Collusive oligopoly, as according to Dr. Peter Navarro from Harvard. We're going to get into Darren Beatty. Darren Beatty's going to join us in a moment when we finish with Rudy. Darren Beatty's one of the smartest guys in the MAGA movement. He's focused. Jack Posobiec's focused on oligarchs. Beatty's been focused on oligarchs for many, many years. When we get into all of it, I want to go back to Rudy. So, Rudy, on the impeachment, because, Twitter is saying, and Maggie, do you have that quote? I want to make sure Rudy hears this. You got the quote?
This is pretty unbelievable.
Okay.
So this is from Twitter released a blog post about their reason for why they permanently suspended the real Donald Trump account. And if you go through these bullet points that they've outlined, it's absolutely unhinged and conspiratorial. I mean, you read this stuff and it's really outrageous. I would encourage people to read the whole thing. But to me, the most insane part is they actually say that the use of words American patriots to describe some of his supporters is also being interpreted as support of those committing violent acts at the U.S. Capitol.
He came out and condemned those guys. The people that did violence, he came out and condemned. And he's saying, but the use of the word American patriots is enough to take down his Twitter
Yes,
thing.
They're claiming that is glorification of violence.
Well, we never glorify violence, but we will never stop calling the deplorables American patriots. You're the backbone of patriotism in this country. And hey, if you don't like it, Twitter, you can take it and say, oh, I've already been taken down. So.
And what's so horrifying and Orwellian is they're taking our virtues and turning them into vices. Literally, what is good is bad, what is bad is good.
Yes.
That's completely upside down.
War is peace, love is hate, all that. Okay. We know the playbook, and that's why we're going to overcome it. So, folks, take a deep breath. It's all about righteous indignation and resolve. That's what we're about on the show. Okay, Rudy, I want to go back to Mayor. I want to go back to over the weekend. We can hear them. We can hear the wood being chopped over right across the street in the nation's capital. They're working on articles of impeachment. You've been here before. And we're the president's lead lawyer, you and Jay Sekulow, to get the president through this on this impeachment. You said at the time at the beginning of the last impeachment, the president said, hey, the conversation was perfect. Everything was perfect about that. You mocked and ridiculed these people at the first one. And in hindsight, it looks you were correct. They were wrong. It was a ginormous waste of time, right? And particularly at the end of it, it took everybody's eye off the pandemic. Thank God War Room Pandemic was there in the middle of January to spot it and shift it from our impeachment show to pandemic. You mocked and ridiculed it the entire time. You said it's purely out to try to destroy Trump. Now, in the last, 10 or 12 days of his administration, they're going to bring forward one, and I think inciting violent insurrection against the United States government. Not to get into the details, because I don't want to tip your hand, but is there any doubt in your mind that Nancy Pelosi is going to bring a bill of impeachment on Monday?
I'm going to have to, as his lawyer, assume that she is. We're ready for it. It is going to be, from her point of view, the coup de grace. It'll prove that all the rest of them were equally as unjustifiable and criminal in nature. These are frame-ups. I consider these conspiracies to obstruct justice. I've always believed that they should be indicted for a 5-year-long conspiracy to frame an innocent man. And if I were dealing with this case, I'd prosecute them for that. I mean, think of all the lies, the Schiff, all the false testimony that was brought forward, the phony dossier against Manafort, the Steele dossier that was paid for. How about the people in the Justice Department hiding relevant exculpatory evidence? They should be prosecuted. This is going to have to turn around one day, maybe first in a book and then in a prosecution. But this will be the most absurd at all. And witness the fact that his approval rating has gone up. You know what they always do, Steve? And I think I said this to you 2 or 3 days ago. Enter the president. Just wait. They're going to overdo it. They overplay their hand.
They overplay the hand. They can't control themselves.
They
don't have a media to kind of control. Right.
Yeah, they'll jump up 10, 15%. Then they'll be afraid to impeach him. My defense of the president on the first impeachment was very simple: keep his approval rating up, because they're cowards and they're not going to impeach him if he's popular. If he isn't popular, they'll run all over him like some carcass,
Well, you had him do what the American people hired him to do, be president of the United States and commander in chief. He did his job. The economy was booming. We were at peace. But we confronted the Chinese Communist Party in China. He was doing his job, and that's what you had him do. But I want to go back and make sure the audience hasn't missed something. You're saying what I called the nullification project, and that was the thing to nullify his presidency from the very moment we won on the early morning hours of November 9th of 2016.
Even before.
Okay, and that's in the campaign. But you're saying that nullification project, nullify him. You're saying that project is your belief you could go use RICO and get to a mass investigation of that and actually bring indictments against people?
Yeah, about 20 of them, sure. Sure. I mean, it goes back to the White House in January of 2016 when two people that work for, believe it or not, Joe Biden, asked Ukrainian prosecutors to dig up dirt on Manafort, Trump, and Don Jr. That's a straight-out violation of the law.
Okay, Mayor, here's the problem.
One of those guys turns out to be the whistleblower at the end. How about that? You want a nice book?
I got it. But I don't want a book. Here's what I think the American people want. And yes, now you're getting there. And instead of Rudy having the tinfoil hat on this morning, what about the following? Why is the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States declassifying all that information and putting it out there? If you put it out there, let the American people decide whether Rudy Giuliani should have a tinfoil hat on or whether Brennan and Clapper and Comey and all these guys are liars and what they've done. I don't understand. His base doesn't understand. And even many of the American people that are civil libertarians and don't support Trump otherwise don't understand why this information is not out there. This information, it's not appropriate, quite frankly, at this stage in his presidency, for Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon to be talking about this in the A block of the second hour on Saturday morning of War Room Pandemic. What has to happen, and I got to tell you, I think President Trump has a moral responsibility. This is bigger than him. It's like the steal that went on the election wasn't about Trump. It wasn't about Trump winning the presidency. We had a higher calling to the Republic and to the Constitution. The President of the United States has a moral responsibility today for this Republic to put all that information out. And hey, if it doesn't match up to what Rudy Giuliani is saying, then Rudy Giuliani has proven, the facts have proven that Rudy's crazy. He is crazy, Rudy. But if it supports it, then guess what? And this is just like the Ukraine letter and the conversation that they impeach him on. The hard drive from hell, because it has the receipts, when that's released, the first thing you see is that, hey, the impeachment would have never gone on if they had released that information back in December of 2019. This is all about facts and information, and this is what I think is so frustrating to the MAGA people. We have the receipts. We have the information. The facts are on our side, but you can't argue that with the oligarchy and the mainstream media cabal, right, and the Democratic Party and the progressives and the corporatist globalists, because we hide it back. So, Rudy, as his lawyer, what is holding the President of the United States back from just putting it all out there?
As his lawyer, Steve, I can't answer that. You know that, because it involves private conversations I have with him. I can tell you this, as his lawyer, I, of course, without knowing the classified material, have had to basically figure out what's in it, at least the worst and the best, so that I can give some advice on whether it should be put out or not. So you're in a little bit of a blind, but I'm willing, without knowing what's in it, to say put it out. And I believe, like everything else that's come out, I mean, a lot has come out. Each time it comes out, it shows that he's innocent and they're involved in a conspiracy to frame him, including the.
Okay, I just want to say, I want to ask this question because, you know, I'm not a Ukraine. I don't deal with the Ukraine thing or the Russia thing.
It isn't just the Ukraine.
I deal with them. I got that, but I deal with them. I got that. But you got to handle crazy Rudy because of Ukraine stuff. I'm anti-CCP guy, but my point is, if this information is released, would you commit to the American people right now that you will not be known as Crazy Rudy, that everything that you've said about the Ukraine, everything you've said about conspiracies that are going on, every interview you've given, every fact you put out there, would that be backed up if this information was released in its totality?
Come on, I've been a lawyer all my life. I did it the same way I went after the mafia, the Nazis, the same way I went after Wall Street. I did it with memos and notes. And I mean, some of it you can see on my podcast because some of it isn't classified. You can see I interview people like their depositions. I have in my home, and I have backed up somewhere else, about 5,000 pages of material, probably an exaggeration, 2,500 pages of material. I have confessions. I have videotapes. I can prove it 5 ways to Sunday. I always knew, there might be a change in administration. They try to put me in jail over it. So I made sure I proved it 100%. And so far, everything I've put out, look at all the Hunter Biden stuff coming out that I was ridiculed for about 2 months ago, and so were you. It's all turned out to be true. It's all turned out to be totally true. How come we're finding out about it now? Well, Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani told you about it 2 months ago, pal. It's going to be as true. It's going to be as true as what has come out so far. Has anything come out so far to contradict anything that I've said or that anything you've said? Anything? Not a single thing.
No, sir.
You know Mayor, what comes out, Steve? I'm going to tell you, it's worse than we think. That's what it will come out. There'll be things in there I don't know about that are worse.
We got 30 seconds, Mayor. Just tell quickly the podcast. How do people get the podcast? Talks about Rudy's interviewing with all kind of evidence about Antifa and others about the protest that turned into part of a riot the other day. Rudy's got the receipts. How do you get to the podcast?